For months now, I have attempted to figure out where we are. And that sounds like somebody totally in the dark. And perhaps it is. But the question then is, politically, nationally, internationally, where are we right now? And where have we been for the last couple of years? And I tried to put it, as I often do, in context of most of the last 100 years. And when I do that, it is to try to see if the pieces that we have now fit with the pieces that we have watched for most of the last century. And one of the things that I've looked at doing is trying to figure out where Trump fits into all of this. And on one hand, when I'm positive and engaged and proactive and see that there are obvious differences and that the enemy of my enemies is my friend, and that is Trump, because obviously the mainstream media is not my friend, most of Congress is not my friend, much of industry is not my friend, the Google and YouTube and the rest of these guys are not my friend, and since he opposes all of them, he has to be my friend, right? Well, maybe. So let's take a look. What I did in looking at these guys is to try to come up with a stereotypical look at a bunch of people. And so I have people who are genuinely in the deep state, and I hope you can see that. People that are Manchurian candidates, MK Ultra, the fools, the puppets, stealthy ones, and patriots, okay? And maybe you can see that all, maybe you can't. Let me try to get it closer so that you can see all of it. And there were people that I thought obviously fit into one category or another, and when they did, I put them there. And so I have people like George H.W. Bush that goes here. He's deep state. He's solid deep state. How do I say that? Why do I say that? Well, at every turn, he is proactive about the New World Order. He was proactive about the New World Order. He's obviously got many other kind of dark state energies. He is tied in, intimately tied in with everybody that's dark. He's a Yale Skull and Bones guy. He's a CIA guy. He's a Bilderberger. He has all the makings, and there's every indication that he engaged in deep state financial activities, including drug running and others. And what is more than that, there are so many rumors about him being more than that. And in the deep state, the Jeffrey Epstein sort of deep state, where the compromise, it is not simply a matter of sexual compromise, it is a matter of deep and dark and ugly sexual appetite, the kind of thing that we have disbelieved. Most of us, disbelieve is not even the right word for it. We could not put it into the outer edges of our imagination, what might have been going on for the last, God knows how many, hundreds of years, thousands of years. So other people I put in here are William Jefferson Clinton, and I put his wife, Hillary. Even though she's not a president, obviously she fits into the place. We've got guys like Kissinger, and we've got Brzezinski, on both sides of it. We've got Soros, the player. We've got David Rockefeller. We may have some of the so-called bankers, the mid-level bankers, the mid and upper level. You've got Nixon. I don't think there's any question about it. Nixon was a player in the deep state. I don't know about the sexual part of it. He doesn't seem like a sexual human to me, but I may be wrong. The whole Bilderberger, if a person went to Bilderbergers, they fit into one of these high categories. And then you've got the The proposal for the New American Century, project for the New American Century. You've got the Council on Foreign Relations, you've got the Trilateral Commission, and a lot of these people fit into these categories here. And so all of those people, I would also add LBJ, and I would add FDR, and I don't think there's any doubt about either of them. Again, I don't know what their, it's hard to imagine their sexual predilections going as dark as H.W. Bush and some of these current guys are, but in every other respect, they were full players. And then I've got this next area, which I call the Manchurian Candidate. It's the MK Ultra. It is the people that seem to be perfectly groomed, perfectly styled, perfectly educated, perfectly promoted to do exactly what they're told and to do it seamlessly. And my perfect example of that is Obama. And I don't think there's any question but that Obama fits there from start to finish. How many of them are there? Some of us kind of can't imagine that there are bunches and bunches of them, but we don't really realize that there are farm camps that start even before the children are born, that they may have been bred into it. We tend to think, most of us in the human scale of things, the normal, average, responsible, intelligent, patriotic Americans look at this and think, well, they couldn't possibly have been looking 50 years back and had this all in the system. We don't think like that. But the truth of the matter is they do. They don't think 50 years, they think 100 years. They'll put 3 or 4 generations into it and feed the process all the way through, and they may have, who knows, they may have 10,000 candidates. By the time they're age 20, weed it to a few hundred. By the time they're 35 or 40, progress them through various kinds of state offices, administration, CIA, whatever, and then shuffle them around to where they fit the best and play them out over the next 10 or 20 years, because there are billions and trillions of dollars involved in it. We tend to think, well, gosh, somebody stole $1 million, that's pretty evil. Well, no, we're talking trillions here, and we're talking many trillions of dollars. One of the projects I'm working on right now is they're passing through the backside of banks in unallocated, unregistered, off the books trillions, and we're looking at $5 to $15 trillion. Well, we're looking at the national production of the entire country floating around in the background. So in this, though, I've got a whole bunch of other players, and I think Anderson Cooper is a perfect player here. I think he was probably a Manchurian kind of person. He obviously came from a very strange background. I've got guys like Schiff, Maxine Waters, Pelosi. I've got McCain. I think McCain fits in here. Why do I think that? I think he was either always messed with or messed with when he was in Hanoi, but he was made to operate in the perfect way. He was allowed to shuffle off and be a fake maverick once in a while, and then they flipped the switch, and when they flipped the switch, he did their bidding. And he did it without, these people in these two categories, we tend to think, perhaps they're narcissists, maybe they're psychopaths, maybe they're sociopaths. Well, most of them are not sociopaths, they're more public. But these folks in these categories are above the level of psychopaths. I don't even know that there's a category for it. There is absolutely zero remorse, no sense of guilt, no sense of responsibility, no sense of shame, and lying to you is part of the process. It fits entirely in with it. Many of our news people, in addition to Cooper, fit into here, and they obviously are doing just exactly what they're told, and they do it seamlessly. Now, not everybody, and some of the rest of them fit into these other two categories, but they certainly fit there. And I would also add into this internationally, either here or here, and you could put them either place, and you could probably move some of these people back and forth. Have some of these people also been a trained split personality, sexually molested as young children, and then programmed? Yeah, possibly some or all of them. We have no idea. But I would put in here Trudeau. I would put in Macron. I would put in May. I would put in Merkel. And I would say they fit somewhere in here, and I say they have to fit here because this is solidly dark. There is nothing good about it. They will do the bidding of the deep state, of the silent, secret, back story managers, owners of this world, the masters. The next group of people I have fit into this fool category, and it's hard to tell whether they have been made also have had their personality split and the rest of that. I would put G.W. Bush here. I consider him the classic fool. He is a perfect fool. Was he also altered? Yeah, possibly, and maybe he's a fool only because he is a crappy Manchurian candidate. That is to say, when he is not being tightly managed, he's not smart enough to stay inside, to color inside of the lines. But I would also put some others here, and I would say a lot of these people are being blackmailed. They are being compromised. They are being terrorized. And that fits into also this category of the puppets as well. They're blackmailed and made a fool. We've got guys in here like Gerald Ford. I think he's a perfect candidate for that. Maybe J. Edgar Hoover. These are guys that benefit from it. I would also put most of Congress right here. And they, obviously some of them, some of the real high performers like Adam Schiff and others look like they fit in across here. And some of them are just puppets and fools, but they fit in across the board here. They're terrified, they're blackmailed, they're compromised. They wouldn't say anything that violates the space. They know exactly where the space is. Then I've got these guys that I call the puppets. And I think the puppets, I mean, I would consider the classic puppets, I would consider Jimmy Carter. As much as I like Jimmy Carter as a person, I think he was a total unwitting puppet of the deep state at the outset. I would say Woodrow Wilson was, and I would also say Truman was. And what I would say about them is they probably started out, I think Jimmy Carter started out thinking he was going to be the straight up president, that he was going to do good things, that he would be a great president. And I think he quickly realized that he was being managed, that he had been groomed, that he'd been brought into it. The Trilateral Commission, the big new Brzezinskis, the rest of these guys had him all neatly tucked into a box. They kept him ignorant of what was going on, as I see it, until they didn't need him anymore, and then they lined him up and compromised him out so that they could get rid of him. But in the process, he probably went from puppet to fool or back or forth. I don't think these guys were deep dark state. I don't think that they were Manchurian candidates. Truman, I think, was You know, I would put all three of these guys in the not too smart category, and I would say that they got compromised. They were compromised right from the start and never ever got up to speed. Wilson got up to speed at the very end of his presidency and made comments about the fact that he had done a terrible thing, that the Federal Reserve had been a terrible thing. And then he had a stroke and basically disappeared from the planet. Was the stroke part of the process? Was the stroke there because they were not going to have him out them and let the American public know that he had made a giant mistake? This would have been 1920. It was time then that they could have undone the Federal Reserve had Wilson been vocal enough about it and had been outspoken about it instead of mumbling about it and then having a stroke and disappearing. Truman, on the other hand, I think was a real opportunist. I don't think Truman would have. I think he was happy to be a puppet. I don't think he ever got totally in front of it. He certainly did not know what he was doing when he was elected. When he came into office, when FDR died, there was no way he was up to speed. And then we've got stealthy guys that I think were basically good guys. The first one I would put on here is Eisenhower. And I know there are people that don't like Eisenhower. There are people that say he killed 1 million German soldiers and all the rest of that. I've never been able to prove that. If somebody has proof of it, what I'm going to say is bring forth the proof. And if it's true, I will out it as best I can. I will, but I've never been able to find it. Eisenhower, I think, got in, thought he was on top of it, thought he was on the front of the thing, thought that as the commander-in-chief, the five-star general, that there was no way he could be outwitted, that he would stay low and stay in the weeds, and that he would be an effective president. And about halfway through it or less, the CIA let him know that they were running the show and that he was simply in the background. He called their bluff on Area 51, and I don't think he called it enough. He swore that he would send military in to see what they were doing, but he didn't. He sent 3 people instead. They obviously didn't find out what was going on. He got duped, and they just went on about their merry way, and they were ready with the Bay of Pigs and with the Vietnam thing and with gun running and all kinds of other things, drugs. The CIA was already doing all of that in the 50s, and Eisenhower figured it out. He called it the military-industrial complex, but it was much more than that. And then I put, and I know some of you don't like this either, I put Reagan here. And I think, got to be able to spell it right. I can spell potato. How does that sound? I can spell tomato too. Although I look up 20 words a day. I put both of these guys in here. I think they were attempting to be good. I think that they knew what good was. I think they felt guilt and responsibility. I think they intended to do good. I think both of them, certainly Reagan did with the Soviet Union and the Iron Curtain. Eisenhower had peace and prosperity and built our interstate highway systems. I think in those senses, in the macro sense, those guys did a great job. But Reagan knew, even before he was elected, he was basically threatened by HW to have HW on the ticket. I don't think Reagan knew that by putting HW on the ticket, he was signing his death warrant, and that if HW could have killed him in office, he would have. He tried with the Hinckley thing. I think he realized he couldn't try twice and get away with it, so they compromised Reagan out. They told him he was going to die, and maybe his whole family would die if he didn't compromise. And I think Reagan basically said, all right, I'm going to work around the edges. That's why I call it stealthy. I'm going to work around the edges and see what I can do in a positive way. As did Eisenhower, knowing full well that that they were compromising their principles, and that they were only going to get a small part of what they really wanted done, and that somebody else was going to have to clean it up. Well, that somebody that fits. I put him in the Patriot category. I'm going to say all of these guys in this side at some level cared about their patriotism. Truman maybe the least. And the guy I put over here, of course, is Kennedy. And I put him here, and I basically talk about, or think about him, you know, he looked like he was here. And the mafia and the Cubans and the oil guys and LBJ's bunch and the rest of them, you know, he played games with the election. He compromised out. He was the son of a gangster, basically. Joe Kennedy was a gangster. And so people had every reason to believe that Kennedy was over here. Not over here. Not over here at all. And Kennedy flipped. And the problem that Kennedy had is that when he flipped, he tried to take on the oil folks. He tried to take on the Cubans. He tried to take on the mafia. He tried to take on LBJ. He tried to take on Vietnam and the military. What else? There were a couple more besides that. And all of those guys came after him. And they came after him in unison. And some of the players over here, like H.W. Bush and Nixon and Gerald Ford, were in on the dark side of the process. They were in on it. So that leaves me with, and this is the heart of the conversation, where's Trump? Where's Trump? I mean, I'm going to say, I don't put him in the fool category. I don't think he's a fool. I don't put him in the puppet category. I don't think he's a puppet. So that takes those out. I don't think he's a Manchurian candidate. I think he's his own person. So I'm going to block these three out and say, I don't think Trump fits there. So what that leaves us then is he working with the deep state, or is he a stealth guy or a patriot? And if he's a patriot, is he going to do what Kennedy did and try to take all of these guys on at the same time and get himself done? Or is he going to winnow himself somewhere between the stealthy and the patriot and find a way, as we see the whole Q business? Some of you think it's a total LARP, but the process that Q is describing fits right here. It fits right here. It's not outing all of the evil, and at the same time it's not compromising to say I can only get a few limited things done. So where does he fit into this? Well, if you look at his appointments, he fits over here. He's got lots of guys from Goldman Sachs. There are lots of them from the whole Bilderberg thing, the Council on Foreign Relations, where else? The oil and gas guys. I mean, he's picked, and you know, he's got brush face. What the hell's his name? Bolton, brush face Bolton. I mean, this guy is here. This is his target. I don't think Rudy Giuliani is too far off from here, or he fits in the fool category. But yeah, there are people that are over here. There are lots of people that say that Pence is over here. And so if Trump is not over there, he has entirely encircled himself with people that are. And not only that, the whole FBI, the CIA, the DOJ, the Department of Justice are all have players that are deep into this and that are connected to the Clintons and the Bushes, the two big crime families, as well as the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission, the Bilderbergers and the rest of that. These guys are all mid-level players on the dark side. So is Trump fit there or not? I don't know. I really, truly don't know. Or is he here? Is he in between the stealth and patriot? This is the Q. This is the Q one here. This is the slide where the process is to stay below the radar, to operate like Reagan and Eisenhower, to get your ducks all in a row, to take the good guys, the patriots, and bring them out and end up over here, and end up alive over here, and productive. And so either we have this situation, or we have this situation, or this situation. And I think the jury's still out. You know, I know most of the people that follow my channel will say, we know that it's over here. We know he's over here. We know he's going to do good things for us. And I am certainly as hopeful as anybody else. But judging from who he has surrounded himself with, he could be over here. Now the good side of it is, he's also gotten rid of a lot of people over here, and he is clearly fighting off everybody that's in this bracket. McCain, Obama, the whole news people, Schiff, Waters, Pelosi, and the rest of them. He is in battle with these guys, and he is in battle with Trudeau and Macron and others. So where does he fit? He fits in one of the two, and I am really hopeful that he's over here. But when you look at it, 4 of these 6, and most of the people, if you look at the names, most of the people for the last 100 years have been totally compromised, have been totally brainwashed, or are deep and dark in the dark side of things. And this is what, if Trump is going to clean it up, he has to clean all of this up, all of it. And this goes back to, this is 1913, right here, and everywhere since. So we have more than 100 years of what's over here, and this does not take into account the Federal Reserve. You can't read any of this, you'll have to just listen to me. The Federal Reserve, which is the giant hand through the bankers, through the Zionists, through the people that are running the world and the country, that are managing all of the people, and that are even terrifying the likes of Reagan and Eisenhower, and managing this whole system. And what most of us have come to understand is that if somebody doesn't take us over here and get us out into the Patriot category, this group wins. They win everything. And it will only get worse. So that's my little report, and this is how I made sense out of it, trying to figure out where everybody is and why they act the way they do. I hope this is helpful in some ways, and that's my report.